Hi, fourth graders. Today we're going to talk about writing summaries using a 3-column note strategy. So a lot of you might be wondering, what is a summary? Well, let's start by talking about what I did yesterday. So if I wanted to tell you what I did yesterday, I could give you a big long list of everything I did, like I woke up in the morning and I brushed my teeth and I went downstairs. I had breakfast with my kids and I drank a cup of coffee. Then I came upstairs, I got on my computer and I started working for the day. I had a meeting where I met with 4th grade teachers and then I met with 2nd grade teachers. I had a lot of phone calls to make to talk to some of your families, and on and on and on. If I told you every single detail of what happened in my day, you probably would get bored. You don't need to know all of that information. So instead of retelling you everything that happened in my day, I can just give you a summary that has a few of the most important details. Like I could say, yesterday I got up, I had breakfast with my kids, I worked on my computer for part of the day. After work, I read a really good book, and then I had dinner with my family and we watched a movie together. That is a much shorter summary of what happened during my day, and it gives you a general idea of the sort of things I did. So as you can see in the example we have right here, we have 3 columns to fill in about a reading that we are going to do. So this is just a sample. The title of this passage is Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. The topic is the March on Washington. So some of the main ideas that this sample has filled in is the date of the March on Washington, which was August 28th, 1963, and Martin Luther King's speech about a dream, because that was one of the biggest things that happened at the March on Washington. And then in this column, the sample lists specific details that are included in the passage about Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. People came by train, bus, car, walking, roller skates. They were protesting because African American people and white people were not treated equally. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted peace, but also was a fighter who used words as weapons. And he made a 16-minute speech. These are all specific details from the passage about Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. And this person, in the questions, sketches, and comments section, drew a little sketch of what the people looked like in the march. They wanted to be there. And they had a question: how can words be a weapon? These are all great thoughts. So in the IVF summary sentence, we're going to identify the item in the text that we are summarizing. Then we're going to choose a verb that helps us summarize what happened. And then we're going to finish the idea to make a summary sentence. The summary sentence tells the big idea of the text. So, for the first column, we identify the item: Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington by Francis E. Ruffin. Then we select a verb. Some of the choices we have are compares, describes, tells, lists, gives, explains, or shows. This person chose describes because this passage is describing what happened in that March on Washington. So then to finish our thought, we need to say it out loud. Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington describes, what does it describe? It describes how many people marched to Washington and heard an important speech by Martin Luther King Jr. And that is what our summary sentence is. We put these 3 columns together. Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington by Francis E. Ruffin describes how many people marched to Washington to hear an important speech by Martin Luther King Jr. On the second page of your example, you have different example sentences from informational text and literary text. So it might be a little bit different depending on what the text is trying to tell you. In an informational text, this person chose, in chapter 5, Computers in My Science Book, it is explaining how our computer makes pictures on the screen. So the sentence puts those ideas together. In example 2, from a story, the fable, The Fox and the Goat, shows that you can't trust everyone. So that is our summary sentence for that story. And at the bottom of this page, we have a word bank of summary verbs that we can use in that verb column to help us make that summary sentence. Compares, describes, explains, gives, lists, presents, provides, shows, tells. And now we're going to have a chance to try it together. In the 3-column notes with summary page, you're going to summarize the following passage from a story about pirates. The title of the book is Pirates. So we'll write that in the title of the 3-column note summary. The topic for this section of the book is Pirates Everywhere. So we'll write that in our topic. Would we write Pirates Everywhere? I think it might be more clear if we say where pirates come from. So in this first column, we're going to list some of the main ideas of this passage. Then in the second column, we're going to list specific details from those main ideas. And then in the third column, you can do any questions, sketches, or comments that you have about this passage. Let's read the page now. Pirates everywhere. Pirates came from all over the world. Wherever there was trade at sea, there were pirates. Viking pirates sailed the seas over 1,000 years ago. They came from northern Europe, but sailed far and wide. Vikings made very strong boats, called longboats, below. They could sail the roughest seas, but they were also small enough to land close to the coasts. This here is a picture of a Viking helmet. The Barbary pirates came from the southern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. In the 16th century, they were feared all over Europe. Pictured to the left is one of the Barbarossa brothers, 2 fearsome Barbary pirates. The Buccaneers. The Buccaneers were a fearsome group of pirates in the 17th century. They were hunters from the island of Hispaniola, now called Haiti. The Spanish forced them to leave the island, so they grouped together as pirates, attacking Spanish ships and ports. All right, using this passage, you are going to fill in the 3-column notes for the main ideas, details, and comments section. Let's do it together. The main ideas of this passage were kind of broken down for us into these different sections. We know that the big topic of the passage is where pirates come from. The main ideas started right here. Pirates came from all over the world. Pirates came from all over the world. Now that we know the main idea of the passage, we're going to look for the specific details about where the pirates came from. This section of the passage is talking about Viking pirates, and it says they came from Northern Europe. So we'll put that in the details section. Viking pirates came from Northern Europe. The next section talks about the Barbary pirates. It says the Barbary pirates came from the southern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. So we'll put that in a detail. Barbary pirates came from the southern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. This top pop-out section talks about the Buccaneers. They came from Hispaniola, which is now Haiti. So we can put that as our third detail. The two C's, Buccaneers. The Buccaneers came from Hispaniola, now Haiti. And in this section, you could write a question, comment, or draw a sketch. I was wondering, were there any pirates from Asia? I wonder if I read more of the book, I would find out. I was also wondering, did different pirates have different types of ships? It started to talk about the Viking ships, but we didn't hear much about the other ships. So I'd be interested to find out more about that. Okay, now that we have our 3 columns filled in, we want to make our IVF summary sentence, the summary sentence that tells the big idea of the text. So your job is to use the 3 columns to write an IVF sentence. Identify the text you are summarizing. Choose a verb such as compares, describes, tells, lists, gives, explains, or shows, and then tell the big idea of the text. After you fill in all 3 columns, write your summary sentence at the bottom.